What's up everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Preeti Rao and I am both a real estate and a mortgage broker for close to 20 years. Now, last week I did a video on the collapse of SVB, and as predicted, the postmortem of the bank's failure and the cleanup has already begun. We now finally have clear answers as to what really happened. But the question still lies, how is all of this going to affect us Canadians? Let's get into the details of all of that. But first, you know the drill. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, tap the bell icon. It gets me motivated to keep you up to date with everything real estate. Now, as you know, SVB was no ordinary bank. It was the go-to institution for venture capital and tech startups. And with IT booming during the pandemic, SVB found themselves holding on to a lot of deposits. And it invested this money in government bonds. But last year, when the US Federal Reserve hiked the interest rates, it issued new bonds. These new bonds offered higher interest rates, and that made the old bonds less valuable. Their value declined sharply, and if they sell them, they'll not be able to recover the money. In other words, SVB was already sitting on a pile of losses. Now, SVB still owned tens of billions worth of these long-term bonds, so they were actually a sitting duck for risk by the end of 2022. Now, if SVB held on to these bonds till maturity, they wouldn't lose anything. But this was not the normal time. In a higher interest rate environment, technology startups were struggling to get financing. As credit began to dry up, these tech companies needed to dip into their cash to fund their operations. And with startups being the main client for SVB, the deposits started to slow down. And for large withdrawals, SVB had to sell some of their long-term bonds to cover the transactions. Now, for some time, the bank had enough liquidity to deal with these withdrawals. But as time passed, depositors continued to leave. And on March 8th of 2023, SVB made a bombshell announcement. They were selling off their entire liquid bond portfolio that was worth over $21 billion. Until this point, the falling bond prices were only unrealized losses. That's losses that you only see on paper. But once sold, SVB took a loss of $1.8 billion. And to recoup some of these losses, management decided to raise some capital and had a fundraiser. While this seemed like a logical choice, this was a grave error from management, because the timing could not have been worse. Just days before, Silvergate, a small crypto-focused bank, failed due to a similar issue. Although this failure had more to do with the exposure to the overall crypto market and the FTX in particular, but the root cause was the same. The bank had a lot of assets which had lost their value due to rising interest rates, and when withdrawals in the crypto market began to happen, they had no choice but to sell those assets. Each sale of the assets was at a lower price than when they originally bought it, and once the loss is powered up, there's no turning back. Investors assumed that SVB was going down the same path, and this resulted in SVB stock losing close to 60% of its value in one day. As all of this unfolded, many venture capital firms advised the founders of startups to pull their money out of SVB, further exacerbating the problem. And by the end of March 9th, customers had withdrawn $42 billion, leaving the bank with a negative $958 million. The withdrawals were so heavy that it ended up crashing the bank's internal system. Now, the federal government is taking care of things in the US. The question is, how is all of this going to impact us Canadians? Where we stand today, some of Canada's largest banks are proactively soliciting SVB's clients. But the bank's interest is very clear. They are providing a pre-approved special deposit package to companies affected by SVB's closings and offering to take on some of the term loan offered to SVB clients. Already, some companies that banked with SVB have moved their side state deposits. The problem with all of this is that the private maneuvering could make any sale of SVB more challenging, because any buyer of the bank will not want the best clients and loans to disappear before the deal is completed. Yet, fleeting to other banks is very tough to stop, because Canada's banks are also being approached by existing SVB clients. More than $1 billion worth of business opportunities, deposits, loans, credit facilities have knocked on the doors of Canadian banks. The clients include some US companies that see Canada's largest stable banks as a safe haven during the period of this heightening stress in the US banking system. But Canadian banks seem more interested in individual SVB loans and clients rather than the whole bank. Now, OSFI said that it intends to take permanent control in a process that would formally launch the sale of SVB's Canadian assets. There may not be a clear buyer, and the Canadian regulatory might wait for the US sale to conclude before proceeding. Because see, SVB wasn't authorized to take deposits in Canada from you and me. There wasn't the urgent rush to protect the cash like it was in the US and Britain. So that being said, here in Canada, we are relatively safe. Yes, the Canadian employees of SVB might get hit, but as long as their deposits were within $100,000, their money is also safe. Now, a lot of people, or let's say the gurus, are calling this a deflationary event, which in turn will reduce the price of gas, the interest rates, making things a little bit more affordable. How much of this is going to be true? We just have to wait and see. So, if you have any questions or want clarifications, please don't hesitate to call me. If you still don't know who I am, just go click on my ratings on Google and read my client reviews. Till then, take care. And if you found value and liked this video and would like to see more content, click on the boxes on the screen. Once again, my name is Preeti Rao. My contact information is in the description box below. Make sure to hit like, share, subscribe, and the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to call me because I hold the key that opens the door to your dream home.